Dear listeners, thank you for supporting us with your subscription. Enjoy watching. I allowed my husband to meet his mistress. My story was 3 years ago. As I truly am lost. I lived in a happy marriage for 15 years, but apparently everyone has his own tongue. After giving birth to my second child in 2 years, an urgent operation, removal of all female organs, a month later I realized that my husband had found a replacement for me. He and a friend went to the bath once a week for several years. I always took it easy and was confident in him. Let him go where he wanted, to the south and to the disco and to the baths. In the bathhouse, there were 2 girlfriends. One of them a doctor gynecologist who actively helped, and the girlfriend recently died her husband, and 2 months later she began to show signs of attention to my husband. Ostensibly, both of them were hungry, but there had to be a conscience, right? She knew all my medical history from my girlfriend, that the child was 2 years old, and she herself should be in mourning, but no, it did not stop them. My husband started coming home from the bath later, calling less often when he was at work, but in bed he grumbled that he wasn't getting enough sex. I reassured him as best I could. When allowed, we started having sex. This is in 15 years. You know, all the desires of her husband, and then suddenly the novelty, and then I began to suspect him. But when he came back from the sauna, all I heard was girlfriends and increasingly her name, plus he spent more time with his phone. I started looking, turned on his phone tracking. I already knew everything about her. I stopped paying attention to my husband in bed and started insinuating that he needed to find a mistress for his pleasure. It was on purpose. He sent me and my children on vacation to Egypt for 2 weeks. He wanted to enjoy it with complete freedom. For chill all the time, he asked me. I was serious about the mistress. After we came back, we had a fight. He did it on purpose. He had to get to her somehow, and a week later, he confessed to me. I am still that provocateur and made him tell me everything and in detail. My response to him at all shocked. I allowed him to meet her from 21 to 23 hours. I had to see if he would go to her or not. He went, and so he did for 3 days. I had to think about what to do. After all, I have 2 kids. The youngest is 2 years old. But when he came back from her on the 3rd day and started caressing me, I told him we were getting divorced. That was a hard night talking, crying, sorry, never again. Only you, but I stood my ground. He said he would take my youngest child away from me. I was shocked, changed my tone, and by 9 a.m., he texted her that was over. It seemed like he was home now, but the phone records showed a lot of texting. But a week later, act fermenti cordis, I made a printout and confronted him with the words, "Someone wasn't born yet who could cheat me." As another night of horrors, but after swearing, I gave him another chance. His phone was under my control, but the telegram once gave out a text message from her right into my hands. I had to arrange a meeting with her. I sat in the back seat and couldn't be seen. The mistress behaved in our car as if she were at home, but my husband knew I was there. I was having fun. She didn't want to talk to me. I did not get an answer to the question of how she slept and whether she had a conscience, but I knew for sure that this was not the end. As the month passed, but my intuition still cannot calm down, and for good reason, he decided with his friends to go to Egypt. I wasn't against it, but first one and then another friend couldn't. Everything is clear, so he goes with his mistress. I behaved very calmly, since the hotel he chose was under my watchful guidance. Well, naturally, I made sure that there were seats for me too. I had a plan to report to them and call it a day. When the hotel was selected, he called several travel agencies. What was my surprise when the contract, ticket, and insurance were brought to the house? According to the documents, all for one, but I do not believe in such miracles. I remembered the girl, and at night I found her phone number in the itemized calls, and then I used the number to find her on social networks, then her friends, and then our mistress was found. The night is long, and I his phone, even if all erased, the story is saved. I went all the way through how he got to her through social networking, and then already to the travel agency. The full confidence was not that he was flying with her, but such a service with delivery made me very wary. The flight was 10 days away, and I had to find out. He was behaving well and preparing for his departure, buying everything new for the trip, which was also embarrassing. Anyway, he was getting ready for his trip, and I was getting ready for mine. I decided to fly 2 days after him, made a reservation for 5 days. I couldn't take the kids on such a trip, because there were 2 options. I would fly in and see that he was alone, or that he was with her. I made arrangements with a relative to pick up the kids in my absence. Those days were horrible. I would leave the kids behind and go get my husband to figure things out. But how could I figure it out and not go anywhere at the same time? It was annoying to think that they would get sobered up there, and then my husband would come to me under the barrel. And if I didn't go, I wouldn't know the truth. What if there really was one, and I would think there wasn't? I was also ready for any option. If he was with her, then I could not get away, and I would have come back and I would have had another week to pack and move to another city where I could sit tight and then quietly get a divorce. I was ready, but for days before we left, we were sitting in the kitchen. My husband's phone was on the table when the text came in. I decided to get his phone. He reached for it too, but I managed to get to it first. And then it began. We each pulled the phone to ourselves. But from such a reaction of his, it is clear that something is wrong. He began to shout, "You're completely crazy." I gave up and stopped fighting for the phone. We went back into the kitchen, and I told him I was 100% sure he was flying with her. He started poking me with the paperwork, where the number is for 1 and the ticket 2. I couldn't prove my suspicions, and he stood his ground. I asked him to calm down. I called my daughter and took her phone. At the chance when she left, he continued to say that I was completely crazy and that he no longer remembered his mistress. I dialed the travel agent's number and asked if I could still book a 3rd room on top of the ones already booked. She said that they had originally ordered 2 rooms, and then changed it to 1, and just he is at the stop, but the plane tickets should be clarified. I thanked her and hung up. My husband heard everything and was just shocked. I told him that the last puzzle had been put together and the word divorces came out. I also told him that I knew he was seeing her because I had been monitoring the situation the whole time. The conversation was long, difficult to describe, and not real. By morning, I was just sobbing and kept asking why he was doing this to me. After all, if he had already confessed and could not leave her, it was safe to tell me everything. Go in love, have feelings for another. I'm not a beast and everything will understand and will not keep you, calm divorce, and all is well. But he tried to deceive me, and I've every time to prove that he had a mistress, knowing about it for 2 months, although it was the most common provocation. Outwardly, I was calm, but my soul sobbed. He had a choice. Had she become more important than me in 4 months? He and she had stolen 10 years of my life. Virtual to when I had already spelled out all I knew about them, and he had no idea that I knew so much. Then I felt sorry for myself, and I just covered my face and sobbed. He took me in his arms and carried me to the couch like a little doll, stroked my head, and I fell asleep. I woke up to someone stroking my face. I brought you coffee. I made a point with her and gave up the trip. And the money, I asked. They won't give the money back. That's when I completely woke up. How's that? So you also paid for her trip? Greenie. I called a travel agent. Has already introduced himself as his wife and asked if it was possible to change people, and if there were still plane tickets. I was told no problem. Then I called his mistress. I said she had 5 minutes to choose an option. We give you some of the money you paid extra, or you give the money to us. I said I would sell my ticket and you would fly with a stranger. That's how me, my husband and son flew to Egypt, and my daughter stayed because of her studies. Every day there were huge bouquets, long conversations, but it was all when the baby was already asleep, and a happy family during the day. The sun helps, and there is no mistress here, brains resting, and all is well. It's time to go back. My head remembered everything. There is no trust, and what to do next. I realized that the mistress needs a man that after the meeting in the car, she did not understand anything. I shuddered at the texts every time I made the decision to go to the bathhouse with my husband. He was now forbidden to go there. He resisted for a long time, but my persuasion played its part and he gave in. Thursday came and we went to the baths. What I would do there, I did not know. Only one thing: where I started, there I must finish. He went in first, then me. My mistress was already there, but she didn't see me, sitting with her back to me. When she heard his voice, she began to smile. I could see it in her cheekbones. We undressed. My husband went into the men's section, and I went into the women's section, just in front of her nose. I stopped next to her and told her that she and I needed to talk. She replied that we had nothing to talk about. I just stood there, and when I saw the asymmetrical haircut, I said, "Have you been shaved yet?" She had just been poured hot tea and it all flew in my face. Her fight broke out. The men ran after my husband. I didn't hit her, only slapped her, and after the first one I realized I was much taller and stronger. She waited until hubby came out, and she ran after him. Just in general, there was a lot, but most importantly, he did not defend her apparently. This is what I was waiting for. After getting an answer for myself, I decided that now, after such humiliation, they will have no desire to communicate. I called a cab and we drove home. 3 years had passed since then. My husband is back to his old self. I feel he loves me. He's the perfect dad. I guess it's possible to get over yourself and forgive. Comments. Oleg. Author, if everything is as you write, I'm ready to tip my hat to you. You are a genius detective and an excellent provocateur. I enjoyed reading your epic. Except one bad thing. You yourself are pushing your husband to cheat, and what will be the end? You do not know. Adelaide. Yeah. Isn't life boring for you? You're making a detective out of it. You're lowering yourself. You let a man go to bed with his mistress and then take him back. It's disgusting. They gave him one chance. His husband lost him. That's enough in my opinion. In my opinion, for a divorce. Yes, initially such a betrayal was enough to realize that the family is over. The children would have been better engaged in self-development. Author, it's easy to talk and write about pride. I have so much of it that you can't even imagine. Natalie, you encouraged your husband to have a mistress. You said you wouldn't mind if he had a mistress, and you're the one who pushed him to continue the affair. That's no way to keep a family together. And young children tend to stay with their mothers. Instead of talking and figuring out your feelings with your husband, you keep playing ridiculous surveillance. Anna, why are you all so pissed off at the author? She herself pushed to cheat, narcissism, crazy, and stuff. If you're in her place, see what you're capable of. Who's so naive as to advise to sit down with a walking husband to talk frankly and wag a finger if anything? By Eve Simplicity. The author described the events well. It's embarrassing to even write that I enjoyed reading it. Not snot. Oh, tell me what to do. Well, tell me, and sensible and coherent steps in the prevailing circumstances, as worst as possible. If you do not know your husband fiddling around like a frying pan, look for them. They are everywhere. The author, you are good. And of course, unfortunately, until the end of your marriage will remain bitter distressed. Constant tension. Who called? Where did he go? Why did he stay late? Where did he spend the money? Will keep popping up. That's occult resentment. That the unreliability of a man and the father of children. Suspicion and bitterness. It's with you forever now. Dear listeners, please like and subscribe to our channel. It stimulates me to release new videos for you,